He promised me a surprise date, something special to make up for the stress we'd been under. I was excited, feeling like he was finally showing how much he cared. But when he revealed the truth about why he'd planned this date, my heart dropped. What he said destroyed me in a way I never imagined. The man I thought I knew was hiding something dark, and in one moment, everything changed. Stay tuned to find out what happened, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more emotional, real-life stories like this. It had been a hectic few weeks. Life, work, and everything in between had taken a toll on Emily. She and Daniel, her boyfriend of 2 years, had been struggling to find time for each other. The constant pressure from their busy lives left little room for romance, and the spark that once defined their relationship seemed to be fading. But then, one evening, Daniel surprised her. He told her that he had planned something special for the weekend, an evening just for the two of them. Emily's heart fluttered at the thought. After weeks of tension and exhaustion, this felt like a sign that he still cared, that he still wanted to make their relationship work. She had been feeling disconnected, and this surprise date seemed like the perfect way to rekindle their bond. Saturday came, and Daniel picked her up in the evening. He was grinning, his energy contagious, and Emily couldn't help but feel excited. "You're going to love it," he said, flashing her a playful smile as they drove through the city. They passed familiar streets, but they kept driving further and further into unknown territory. The anticipation built inside Emily, wondering where he was taking her. What had he planned? Eventually, they arrived at a secluded spot, a small park that overlooked a beautiful lake. The sun had just set, casting a warm glow over the water, and the air was crisp with the hint of evening. Daniel led her to a small picnic setup, complete with candles, wine, and a blanket spread out on the grass. Emily's heart swelled. It was beautiful. He had clearly put effort into this, and for the first time in a long while, she felt truly appreciated. They settled down, sharing food and wine, laughing and reminiscing about their early days together. It felt like the connection they had once shared was finally returning. But as the night went on, Daniel's demeanor began to shift. His lightheartedness slowly morphed into something darker, something less playful. Emily couldn't quite place it, but the change was noticeable. Her excitement started to wane as she tried to figure out what was going on. After some silence, Daniel finally broke it. He cleared his throat, looking down at his hands. Emily, sensing a shift, waited anxiously for him to speak. "I've been meaning to talk to you about something," he began, his voice uncharacteristically serious. Emily's stomach dropped, and a cold chill ran down her spine. She had no idea what was coming, but she could feel that something wasn't right. "What is it, Daniel?" she asked, her voice shaky with the sudden unease that filled the air. Daniel hesitated before continuing. "I think it's time I told you the truth about something I've been keeping from you for a while." Her heart skipped a beat. The words echoed in her mind. "The truth? What truth? Was it something from the past? Or was this about their relationship now?" "What do you mean?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel took a deep breath before looking up at her. "I've been seeing someone else, Emily. It's been going on for a few months now." The words hit her like a slap across the face. Her vision blurred and her chest tightened with a combination of shock and disbelief. She couldn't process what he had just said. She stared at him, waiting for him to continue, hoping that this was some kind of cruel joke. But the pain in his eyes told her that it wasn't. "Why?" Emily's voice cracked, barely a whisper, as the tears began to well up. "Why would you do this to me?" Daniel's face contorted with guilt, but there was something else there. Something cold, something distant. "It's not that I didn't care about you, Emily. I did, but things between us had changed, and I didn't know how to fix it." I didn't know how to tell you. The tears now streamed down Emily's face. The man she loved, the man she had trusted with her heart, had been seeing someone else behind her back. All of the late nights, the distant behavior, the sudden mood swings, it all made sense now. And yet, hearing him admit it in such a matter-of-fact way left her feeling empty. There were no apologies, no real remorse, just an admission of guilt, as if he had been carrying this burden for so long and now it was time to unload it. She could feel the ground beneath her shift, the very foundation of her reality cracking in front of her. This wasn't the man she thought she knew. This wasn't the man she had spent the last 2 years with. And as the weight of his words sank in, Emily realized that everything she had believed in, the trust, the love, the future they had planned, had all been a lie. Why now? Emily choked out, trying to keep herself composed. Why tell me this tonight on this date? Daniel's gaze dropped to the ground. Because I couldn't keep lying to you anymore. I've made my choice, Emily. I've decided to be with her. The words shattered the illusion of their perfect night. The picnic, the candles, the laughter, everything that had felt like a rekindling of love was now tainted by his betrayal. Emily sat there in stunned silence, feeling the weight of his words crushing her. It wasn't just the affair. It was the realization that everything she had believed about their relationship had been false. She had been living in a fantasy, and now the truth had come crashing down in the most devastating way. The moments that followed Daniel's confession felt like an eternity. Emily sat motionless, unable to process the words that had just shattered her world. It was as if time had frozen, the air thick with disbelief. The man she had trusted, the person she had believed was her soulmate, was now a stranger sitting before her, admitting to the unthinkable. She could barely breathe, her chest tightening with each passing second. Her mind raced through 1,000 thoughts, each more painful than the last. How had she not seen this coming? How could she have been so blind to the signs? She thought back to the quiet nights when he would suddenly go quiet, to the times he would leave his phone face down on the table, to the unexplained late nights at work. Each of those moments now seemed like pieces of a puzzle she had never bothered to solve. How foolish she had been, trusting him completely, believing in the promises he had made. Daniel sat there, his face full of guilt, but there was something else in his eyes, something that made Emily feel even more betrayed. It wasn't just the affair. It was the way he was talking about it, as if it were something that could be explained away, as if it were just another mistake to be forgiven. He was so calm, so detached from the raw pain she was feeling. His words were soft, but they were cutting deep into her heart. "I'm sorry, Emily," he said again, his voice barely above a whisper. "I never wanted to hurt you, but I couldn't keep lying anymore. I've been seeing her, and I want to be with her now." The finality of his words hit Emily like a wave. She looked at him, trying to make sense of the situation, but nothing made sense. Everything they had built together, every plan for the future, every moment of love she had shared with him, felt like a cruel joke. He wasn't the man she thought he was. The man she had trusted had deceived her in the worst possible way. "I don't understand," Emily said, her voice trembling. "How could you do this to me, Daniel? We were supposed to be building a life together. You promised me you were different. You promised me you were faithful." "I know," Daniel replied, his voice filled with regret. "I was weak. I wasn't honest with myself, and I didn't know how to fix things between us. I never meant for it to go this far, but once it did, I couldn't stop." The words felt hollow, and Emily couldn't find it in herself to care about his explanations. It didn't matter why he had done it. The fact was, he had betrayed her. He had broken the trust they had built over the years, and now all she could feel was an overwhelming sense of emptiness. The life she had envisioned, The future they had talked about was now a lie. Nothing about their relationship was real anymore. Is she worth it, Daniel? Emily asked, the words slipping out before she could stop them. Her voice was barely a whisper, but the question hung in the air, sharp and raw. Daniel hesitated, and Emily could see the guilt written all over his face. I don't know if I can explain it, Emily, he said softly. It's not about her being worth it. It's about something I lost along the way. Something I didn't even realize I needed until it was too late. Emily shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. You don't get it, do you? It's not about what you needed, it's about me. It's about us. You promised me we were in this together. But now I see that it was just a lie. Daniel opened his mouth to speak, but Emily couldn't hear him anymore. Her heart was breaking, but her mind was clear. She had to leave. She couldn't stay in this toxic relationship with this man who had shattered her trust and her love. He had made his choice, and now Emily had to make hers. I can't do this anymore, Daniel, she said, her voice firm, even though her heart was breaking with every word. I can't keep pretending that everything is okay when you've lied to me, when you've broken me like this. Daniel's face fell, and he reached out to her, but Emily pulled away, her body trembling with the intensity of the emotions coursing through her. I need to go, she whispered, standing up from the picnic blanket, her legs unsteady beneath her. I need to be alone. As she turned to walk away, she felt the weight of the last 2 years crashing down on her. All the love, the moments of happiness, the promises they had made, none of it mattered anymore. She was left with the pain of betrayal, the emptiness of a future she could no longer envision with him. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew one thing for sure. She couldn't stay there, in that moment, with him. Not anymore. The days after that night felt like a blur for Emily. She was caught in a whirlwind of emotions: anger, sadness, disbelief, and confusion. Her heart ached with every memory of the love she had shared with Daniel. She had given him everything, trusted him with her heart, and yet he had destroyed it with a single act of betrayal. The nights were the hardest. She couldn't sleep, her mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. How had she not seen the signs? How had she been so blind to the truth? Every moment she had spent with him now felt like a lie, a cruel joke she had been playing along with. The promise of forever seemed meaningless now, reduced to empty words that had been spoken without sincerity. But despite the pain, Emily knew she couldn't stay in this emotional whirlwind forever. She had to find a way to move on. She couldn't let Daniel's actions define her future. She was determined to reclaim her life, to rebuild herself from the broken pieces he had left behind. It wasn't going to be easy, but she knew she had no other choice. The first step was accepting that she had been deceived. It wasn't her fault. She hadn't asked for this. She had trusted Daniel, and he had violated that trust in the most painful way possible. But she couldn't keep blaming herself for his choices. He was the one who had betrayed her, not the other way around. And while the hurt was real, she had to find a way to heal from it. Emily began distancing herself from everything that reminded her of Daniel. She packed up the small things he had left behind, the little reminders of their life together, and put them in a box. It was painful, but it was also necessary. She couldn't keep living in the shadow of their past. It was time to let go and start fresh. As she sorted through her belongings, Emily realized just how much she had sacrificed for Daniel. She had given up parts of herself to make their relationship work, to keep him happy. She had neglected her own dreams, her own happiness, in favor of the life they had built together. And now she was left with nothing but a broken heart and a sense of lost identity. But as she packed away their memories, she also found something else: strength. Emily was beginning to realize that she had been more than just Daniel's partner. She was her own person, with her own passions, dreams, and ambitions. She had spent so much time building her life around him, around their relationship, that she had forgotten who she was without him. It was time to rediscover herself. She started by reconnecting with her friends. They had been there for her when things were good, but she had distanced herself from them when things got tough. Now, Emily reached out to them, seeking comfort and support. They welcomed her with open arms, reminding her that she wasn't alone. Her friends helped her see that she was still worthy of love and happiness, and they encouraged her to embrace the future, no matter how uncertain it seemed. Emily also focused on her career, something that had always been important to her, but had taken a back seat during her relationship with Daniel. She threw herself into her work, determined to succeed on her own terms. As she dove into new projects, she felt a sense of accomplishment that she hadn't experienced in a long time. It was empowering to know that she was capable of achieving great things without needing validation from anyone else. And while work was important, Emily also knew she needed to take care of herself emotionally. She began therapy, seeking help to work through the pain and confusion left by Daniel's betrayal. The sessions were difficult, but they were necessary. Talking about her feelings, processing her hurt, and learning to forgive herself were all part of the healing journey. Over time, Emily began to feel a sense of peace returning to her life. She was no longer consumed by the bitterness of the past. She had faced the betrayal head on, and while it would always be a part of her story, it no longer held the power to control her. She had learned to forgive herself for the mistakes she thought she had made, and she had learned to value her own worth. One evening, as Emily stood in front of the mirror, she smiled at her reflection. She was still healing, but she was stronger than she had ever been. The woman who had been shattered by Daniel's betrayal was gone. In her place stood a woman who was learning to love herself again, to embrace the future, and to trust that better days were ahead. Emily knew that she would never forget what Daniel had done. The pain would always be there, a scar on her heart. But she also knew that she had the power to move forward, to rebuild her life on her own terms. And that, she realized, was the most important thing of all. Weeks turned into months, and slowly Emily found herself adjusting to life without Daniel. It wasn't easy, and there were days when the hurt resurfaced, when the weight of betrayal felt unbearable. But each day, she became stronger. Each day, she learned to trust herself again, and with that trust came healing. She had been through the darkest time of her life, but she had also discovered a strength within herself that she never knew existed. One evening, as she sat in her favorite coffee shop, sipping a cappuccino and reading a book, Emily felt a sense of calm she hadn't felt in a long time. She had been giving herself permission to embrace the quiet moments, to enjoy the simple pleasures of life. The small things that had once seemed insignificant now brought her immense joy. She had learned to appreciate these moments of peace, to be grateful for the freedom she had found in her own company. As she watched people walk by, couples and friends laughing together, Emily realized how much she had grown. She wasn't bitter anymore. She had learned to let go of the anger she once felt toward Daniel. Anger was a weight that only dragged her down, and she had no intention of letting it control her any longer. Instead, she had chosen to focus on herself, on her healing, and on creating a life that was her own. Over time, Emily's confidence grew. She rediscovered the passions she had once put aside, things she had loved but had neglected while she was wrapped up in the relationship with Daniel. She started taking weekend trips to new places, exploring art galleries, hiking in the mountains, and even signing up for a pottery class. She had forgotten how much she enjoyed these activities, how they made her feel alive. And now she was fully immersed in them, rediscovering her joy for life. Her career was flourishing as well. She had thrown herself into her work, focusing on new opportunities and challenges. She found herself more focused and determined than ever before. Her boss noticed her dedication and offered her a promotion, something that felt like the culmination of all the hard work she had put in over the past year. It wasn't just about professional success, it was about knowing that she could achieve things on her own without relying on anyone else. She was proud of herself, and that was something she had never truly felt in the past. Despite everything, there were moments when Emily still thought about Daniel. She couldn't help it. They had shared so much together, and the memories of their time together still lingered in the back of her mind. But each time she thought of him, she reminded herself that she had made the right decision. She couldn't stay in a relationship built on lies. She deserved honesty, respect, and love, and she had finally realized that she could give those things to herself. One afternoon, Emily received a message from Daniel. Her heart skipped a beat as she read the text. "I've been thinking about you a lot. I miss you. Can we talk?" Her first reaction was a mix of anger and confusion. Why now? Why, after all this time, did he think it was okay to reach out? She had spent so much time healing, rebuilding her life, and now he was trying to come back into it? She put the phone down for a moment, her mind racing. She knew she had a choice. She could let him back into her life, hear him out, and perhaps give him another chance. Or she could continue moving forward, staying true to herself and the progress she had made. Emily took a deep breath and picked up her phone. She typed a message in response. "I've moved on, Daniel. I've healed, and I'm in a better place now. I don't think it's healthy for either of us to go back to what we had. I hope you find what you're looking for, but it's time for me to close that chapter of my life." She pressed send and felt an overwhelming sense of relief. For the first time, she felt completely at peace with her decision. There was no more holding on to the past, no more wondering what could have been. She had closed that chapter, and now she was ready to continue writing her own story. In the days that followed, Emily didn't look back. She was no longer haunted by the memory of what Daniel had done. She had learned that she was worthy of a love that was real, a love that was honest and genuine. And most importantly, she had learned that she didn't need anyone else to complete her. She was whole on her own. Emily had come a long way since that night in the park. The betrayal had nearly broken her, but it had also transformed her. She was no longer the woman who had been blind to the truth. She was stronger, wiser, and more confident than ever before. And as she looked toward the future, she was ready for whatever came next. As Emily continued to move forward, her life began to feel more complete. She had learned to embrace her independence, to create a future for herself that was no longer tied to the past. While there were still moments of doubt, moments where she questioned if she had made the right decisions, she knew deep down that her healing journey was leading her in the right direction. The months following her decision to move on from Daniel were filled with new experiences. Emily traveled more, meeting new people, and discovering things about herself she had long forgotten. Her solo trips to different cities became a form of therapy, a way to reconnect with the world around her. She would explore art museums in Paris, take long walks through the cobbled streets of Florence, and savor every moment of freedom. It wasn't just about escaping. It was about learning to enjoy the present and discover the woman she had always been deep down, independent, strong, and full of life. She began writing in her journal again, something she had once done religiously. It wasn't just an outlet for her thoughts, but a way to document her journey and to remind herself of the progress she had made. She wrote about the pain she had experienced, the strength she had found, and the lessons she had learned. The act of writing became a source of clarity for her. It helped her process everything, everything from her failed relationship to her path to self-love and healing. She no longer saw herself as a victim of betrayal. but as a survivor, a woman who had overcome one of the most difficult chapters of her life. As the months passed, Emily's circle of friends grew closer. She had always had a supportive group, but now she began to rely on them more than ever. They had seen her at her lowest, and they were there to celebrate her victories, big and small. They had watched her emerge from the darkness of betrayal and become someone they admired and respected. It wasn't just about the support, it was about the love she found in the people around her. Her friends constantly reminded her that she was worthy of the love she had given Daniel, and much more. They reminded her that she had so much to offer the world: her kindness, her intelligence, her passion, and her creativity. They celebrated her strength, and for the first time in a long time, Emily could see herself the way they saw her. One evening, after a particularly fulfilling day, Emily stood in front of the mirror, taking in the woman she had become. The person staring back at her wasn't the woman who had been heartbroken and lost. It was a woman who was proud of her journey, who had healed and grown through adversity. She had faced betrayal head on and come out stronger than she ever imagined. Her reflection was no longer a reminder of the pain she had endured, but a symbol of the strength she had gained. She was proud of the woman she had become, proud of the choices she had made, and proud of the future she was building. And for the first time in a long time, she could look in the mirror and say, "I am enough." Emily had learned that healing wasn't a linear process. It wasn't something that could be rushed or forced. It took time: time to grieve, time to accept, and time to rebuild. But now she knew that healing wasn't just about recovering from the past. It was about embracing the future with hope and confidence. One evening, while walking through a park near her apartment, Emily realized that the ache in her heart was finally gone. She wasn't holding on to the past anymore. She had forgiven herself for the mistakes she thought she had made, and she had found peace in her own heart. The weight of betrayal no longer carried the same sting. It was a scar, something that had shaped her but no longer controlled her. Emily knew that she still had much to learn, much to experience, and much to give. She was ready for the next chapter of her life, whatever it might be. She wasn't afraid of what the future held. She had already walked through the hardest storm of her life and come out stronger, wiser, and more self-assured than ever before. Her heart was open to whatever came next, whether it was love, new adventures, or new challenges. But she was no longer seeking validation from others. She was seeking fulfillment within herself, and that was all that mattered. Have you ever faced betrayal or heartbreak? How did you find the strength to heal and move forward? Share your story in the comments below. Let's support each other through our journeys of healing and growth. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring and empowering stories. You're not alone in this. Together we can rise above it all.